Hey, this is Bert Poole. I'm here with Trey Jadlow. I think this is maybe 3 out of 4 weekends or something like that in terms of us getting together and chatting. How are you doing, Trey?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
So this came about because you had a discussion 2 weeks ago with Gus about abortion.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I think Gus Bellinger, you had a hangout,
Oh
and it
yeah,
was
yeah, okay, yeah, I
and
remember now.
I remember watching that and having differing opinions than both of you, and I thought that would be an interesting topic for us to discuss. I shared some of your issues with his position, but obviously I have a very different position than yours, so it seemed like a worthwhile thing to explore.
Yeah, I think it's great too. I think that uh, we're coming across several topics that we need to discuss. I think the one that we talk, I'm thinking maybe we should make this a regular radio or podcast program or something because we've got so many things we need to talk about. It seems like every day we're coming up with some new topic. We think, oh, we should talk about that.
Yeah, I think we had three originally that we felt we were going to touch on with this one, and then with the time restraint, we said one. But then yesterday, I'm sure I felt like I had like another two or three added to the heap in terms of getting kind of more perspective on where you're at and kind of and how I differ. So
Yeah.
yeah, those might be interesting to explore in the future for sure.
Hmm.
So we wanted to kind of touch on abortion today. How did you want to kind of kick that off?
Well, I guess we could start out as what you know me. I mean, I'm a born again Christian, so I have a very what might be a conservative view of the issue of abortion, and so but I don't know where you stand. I mean, Gus was very liberal. I think there are probably very few people in the population that would agree with him. But you said you had a nuanced and maybe a modified view. Can you hold just 1 second? Something just came out of the
Sure.
oven. I got to get. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. For anybody who's watching, I'm going to be rubbing my hands a lot today because it's like,
Sorry about that.
oh no, it's fine. I was just explaining that I'm going to be rubbing my hands a lot today because it's cold here for LA, which is probably like 55 to 60 degrees, I think.
That
So,
is cold. Wow, man, you
um,
guys almost never get down to those. Not this early, anyway.
yeah,
Pretty cool.
it's been about a month ago. It was 100 degrees. I had to hang out with Deirdre with Holy Spackle, and
Uh-huh.
it was like 105 that day or something. So,
Wow,
yeah,
that's
it's
amazing how
bizarre.
it's up and down.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is your view on
Yeah,
abortion?
so I think I boil it down to kind of two. There's kind of two key things I see that people need to when they've kind of come to this issue.
Mhm.
It's number one is, what are you actually referring to? Like, what is the thing that you care about? What do you whether it's human life, whether it's a person? I see those as different things. So I think that's what we're talking about is an important aspect to me. And I think the concept of rights is actually the other ingredient factor, and probably the dominant factor is defining what is a right, why do we have them, what constitutes them, um, what are they about, and then working backwards from that. I see it as my approach to abortion is setting aside the emotional content, setting aside everything else, and just determining what do I mean by rights, and what is it that I'm concerning myself with, and do those, and that's where I see kind of the discussion. So I believe that persons have moral rights. I'm a moral objectivist, a realist. I believe that rights are not something that we give. They are things that obtain or supervene on top of a moral agent. They emerge. Rights. You have moral rights um, as a moral agent, and you have moral obligations and duties that come out of being a moral agent. And so And I see them as being not privileged rights. When I talk about rights, they are not privileged one over the other. My rights are not privileged over your rights. I have rights. And where I violate your rights, I forfeit my rights, if that makes sense. That's why we put people in prison. That's why we take away freedoms when you act against the rights of another. That's how I think I view it.
Okay.
So rights aren't something that I'm allowed to take. I'm not allowed to take away your rights without it being the case that you have infringed on the rights of another, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So you think that
and rights apply to persons. That's the other ingredient bit to me. So okay. is that when I'm talking about when I'm talking about a thing that has rights, I'm talking about a person that has rights.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm not quite understanding how you think that humanity is intrinsically valuable, and you're positing a moral law.
Right. This gets back to our discussion about morality, which I'm sure we're gonna have to cover in here. Mm-hmm. I believe that there are physical physical facts about me that that cause me to have certain imperatives. That there are biological facts about me. I didn't mean physical facts. I mean, there are biological facts concerning me, concerning the type of organism that I am, that issue forth physical or biological imperatives. That I have certain priorities given the nature of my being, given the type of organism that I am. They emerge from the biological facts. The imperatives emerge out of those biological facts. And as a social organism, with the sociality being emergent from the biological facts, that I have certain ways, certain things that are important to me, and certain ways I am built to certain notions I'm built to operate under. The biological imperatives drive moral imperatives. That I have social interactions, and there are objectively things I ought to do to actualize the conditions under which my biological imperatives are satisfied.
Okay, so in your determinist, so you believe that all that you do is determined, and that which determines you as a biological being, mm-hmm. Are that which determines you values existence. Would that be?
No, I would say that my values are caused by the biological facts.
Right. Are those biological facts valuers?
No, they're not valuers.
Okay, so you have value that is mm-hmm. determined by non-value. How does that work?
It is my explanation for my values are that they are caused by biological facts. For instance, I value my own existence, my own survival. Mm-hmm. I value my children's survival. These imperatives, these values that I have, fall out of the biological facts that are intrinsic to the organism that I am.
Right.
So there is no meaning granted by external source. It is that they have a purpose from the cause.
But the cause is does not contain that particular entity of value, right?
That's correct. Yes, they are not meaningful in some other thing. My
But it's not
values are meaningful to me, and I kind of get them for free. They emerge from the type of being that I am.
okay. But you said that you're determined, and that which determined you to be valuable.
Well, I don't believe an agent determined me.
Right, but you are an agent, right?
I am an agent, yes.
Okay, so, but actually, there is no you. Actually, the cells that make you up are an agent's or agent,
yes, or
right?
and the I mean, we can get into a reductionist loop here where we break down my constituent bits. But yes, I am a conglomeration. I am I am composed of smaller bits that do not within themselves contain these properties. These properties emerge from the collective working together.
Okay, so what that which makes you up is not does not have the property of value, but once they come together, they become personal.
Because I become a person, yes.
Okay.
I become a person who has thoughts and has motivations and has things that are meaningful to me that I value, and those qualities are not found in my constituent bits because those constituent bits are not the collective me that I'm talking about. They're all required to make the me.
Okay, but you just said there is no me. You're a determinist.
No, well, there is a me. Clearly, me. I am talking to you, but that is
there's no such thing as choice in that you, right?
Yeah, I can choose to do things. I deliberate on certain courses of action, and I operate as I will.
Okay, so you're speaking of you yourself. There is such a thing as an entity as Bert Poole that is not just merely chemical processes, but rather there's something that values existence. There's a value to your being.
I would say that the Bert Poole is the sum total of the constituent parts, not that there is a Bert Poole in addition to the constituent parts.
Okay,
but the constituent parts that all come together are Bert Poole. Right,
but those constituent parts do not have the property of value, right?
No, because Bert Poole is required to have Bert Poole's values.
That's right.
Right? So you can't pluck out the little bits that aren't Bert Poole and expect them to have. It requires the entire orchestration to have the values of Bert Poole. Otherwise, you're not talking about Bert Poole anymore, right?
Okay, but you're positing intentionalities we talked about before. How do you do that without violating the law of identity?
The intentions that I have emerge from the biological facts that make me up.
Okay, but this is what we talked about last night. You're just giving me a just so story. You're just saying that's the way I am because that's the way I am. But that's not giving a justification. You're not rationally justifying it.
No, I'm telling you that there's no external meaning. There is a cause to the way that I am.
If there's no external meaning, there's no internal meaning. You don't have accidental.
That's not true. That's not true. How is that true? How is an external meaning required for me to have internal meaning? How is intrinsic meaning, intrinsic to me, require extrinsic meaning, something outside of me?
That which gives rise to something else cannot have its opposite of a property in order to imbue to another.
Why cannot I? So I am I'm a physical being with biological facts that motivate my actions. And as a result, I have those biological facts create imperatives for me. There is a desire for me. There's a desire for me to survive, right? That emerges from the biological facts concerning me. Just as with a squirrel, right? A squirrel, or we kind of fall into this regress of going down the road of organisms and talking about why an organism survives. So an organism that's a surviving organism has certain biological facts about it that cause it to survive. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having a conversation about it, right? Those biological organisms that didn't have an imperative to survive would not be here. So intrinsically, in the type of species that I am, in the type of organism that I am, I have a desire to reproduce. I have a desire to take care of my children, and these things emerge out of the biological facts. Let's say, Trey, you find sugar to be sweet, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Why do you find sugar to be sweet? And why is it that we can make sweetener for the whole world and know that it's going to be perceived as sweet? What are we talking about when we talk about sweet?
Well, ultimately, we can't know the ultimate ontology of anything. We can't perceive it.
Well, no. So you perceive sweet, and I perceive sweet from sugar, and we know what we're talking about. Right. It is objectively the case that sugar is sweet for you, right. And it is objectively the case that sugar is sweet for me, right? But that emerges from the physical properties regarding sugar in relation to the biological facts concerning my tongue and taste buds.
Yeah.
That you and I have shared biological facts that cause us to perceive sugar the same way, right?
Right.
Right. And sweet could be perceived as a value, right? You could say that sweet is something that you value, whereas something that is bitter is something that you do not value.
No, you're assuming the consequence again.
No, what I'm trying to point out here is that you have biological facts that dictate the way that that is what it means to perceive something as sweet. And were it not the case, were it different, you wouldn't perceive it as being sweet. You don't perceive certain things. We all commonly do not perceive. This is how we can have conversations about health. You and I have shared biological facts regarding how our bodies operate, such that we can value our health and take courses of action that are similar. It's probably healthy for both you and I to jog regularly, to get a good workout in, right? We can have that commonality because we have shared biological facts regarding our composition, and out of those come imperatives, such as if I desire to live longer, which I do, therefore I want to jog and take good care of myself, right? And you have the same imperatives. And those are derived by the biological facts concerning you.
I mean, yeah, you sound like Sam Harris. I mean, he's a master of begging the question.
I haven't watched him, for the record. I haven't watched Sam Harris in probably 2 years, although I did read an exchange about a week ago from him with Dan Dennett, but it was on determinism. It wasn't on any of this. So,
yeah. What you're saying is, again, you're just saying that I'm the type of person that values things. Therefore, it just is. It just happens. And
yes, I'm saying that the cause is the
accident, right? Or like accident, but unintention.
No, the cause is the explanation, but that there's no meaning behind the cause.
But there is meaning.
The cause for it gives me a meaning emerges from. That's the way.
Oh, come on, Bert. I mean, this is ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous. You just said I sound like Sam Harris, so clearly I'm not the only person on this planet.
Oh no, you're all the atheists are the same thing. You just try to squeeze blood out of a turnip, and it's not there.
So let's talk about bracket my morality for a moment, and let's talk about.
But it's fundamental, because what you're doing is you're
but we can't have a conversation.
You're forcing your personal opinion on the value of existence upon everybody, and say that people should be punished because you happen to think existence is valuable. Is that correct?
Wait, you're gonna have to repeat that. Sorry, I kind of lost track of you there.
Okay, you are saying that you have a personal feeling as a biological.
No, I don't. As I said, I believe these are objective qualities.
So it's sinful to devalue existence.
Human existence is, I would say that to take the life of another person is without justification is wrong. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So you may not like that word sin, but you're using it in the exact same way, that you are transgressing a moral imperative that we are all under obligation to keep, right?
I believe that there are there's a state of affairs that is the case, and that there is, at any point for a moral agent, there is a state of affairs that ought to be the case.
Okay, so you have a moral ought.
Given the facts in the world, mm-hmm. and given my biological facts, there is a course of action that should be actualized in order to
because existence is special, right?
Well, we can get into talking about that, but that's that doesn't help this conversation. I mean, we can. No. I'm not trying to say that. I'm saying that I was trying to make a point, and then when you throw that in when I'm trying to make the point, it just kind of like we're not making a point anymore. We're not getting at the heart of what I was trying to say.
Okay.
Right. So what I would say is that there is a state of affairs as a moral agent interacting with Trey Jadlow. There's a way I ought to behave in any given moment that is objectively the case. That there is no, that it's not up to somebody's personal opinion whether I ought to do that or not. Given the facts within the world and given the biological facts, that is the case, that I should behave that way.
So it's objectively wrong.
And when I do not act that way, I am acting objectively immoral. Yes.
So you're saying there's a moral law that exists that is centered around the sanctity of existence.
Not a law. No, I don't like moral law.
What do you call it?
I would call it a moral imperative or an ought. A law I think of as being a set of rules or
what's the difference?
It is the relationship between two sets of facts: the biological facts, or the biological facts, and the facts in the world which dictate the moral facts. The moral facts would be when you take the state of affairs and you say what ought to be the case. What you have it, just so you know, anytime you nod your head, it just completely throws me off because I'm like, no,
but
it's
fine.
Fine.
So silly, Bert. I mean, come on.
No, it's complex. It's really hard to work through. No, so I actually do a much better job writing through it because it's actually still something that I am trying to get comfortable with articulating what it is I'm actually saying. Have you ever had that before, Trey? Where
I have.
I think you encounter this with us quite a bit. I think you have it in your head, how you see it, and actually communicating it where people can actually digest it, without them prejudging it, letting you actually get it out, and then going, okay, now that it's on the table, do you got it right? And even for myself, as I go along, I trip up. I realize I say things I didn't mean to say, or I insert the wrong word. I'll often say moral imperative when I'm talking about a biological imperative. So anyway, regarding the things that I value and the things that are meaningful to me, those just come with my being. Those are intrinsic to the type of organism that I am.
Okay.
I value my kids. I value my wife. I value my health. I value all of these things because of the type of organism I am. And that doesn't need to be, many of those things do not need to be taught to me. They're not things I picked up along the way. Sometimes some of my values are discovered. So I might discover that I enjoy doing something and I value it. But that just goes to say that I have certain qualities about me that found that enjoyable or found that valuable.
Well,
but I don't see... And so I see those as intrinsic. I don't see it the case that if you were to tell me what's meaningful to you, that would be extrinsic to me, right? And that would be something that I could not take on for myself. I couldn't say, I'm going to value what Trey values. If I don't value it, and if it's not meaningful to me, then I won't find it meaningful. And so that asks the question, why is it meaningful to me, and why are things meaningful to you? And it's given the type of person that Trey Jadlow is, given the certain facts about him, he values these things. And given Bert Poole and the facts concerning him, he values and finds meaningful these things. It was not given to me by an external source. Right?
Okay, so if somebody likes to torture puppies, what about that?
Well, I have a big issue with that, because I don't think that torturing puppies is conducive to the type of world, given the type of organisms we are, that we want to live in. A world that allows for the torturing.
So we are
of puppies,
objectively valuable, and we have a moral imperative to promote existence, right? That's what you're saying.
That we are objectively valuable. Is that what you said?
Yeah, you're saying everybody is under this umbrella of the value of existence. If somebody offends that, they need to be moved against, right?
Other human beings are valuable to me, and I am valuable to myself. Yes.
But what if somebody is not?
I don't. If an individual is acting outside of that to be destructive,
like an abortion or something.
Well, we can talk about what abortion, because I might actually agree with you on some abortions. But because I believe we need to be talking about a person. That's where I get to with that. But in terms of someone who's acting outside of what I consider to be the moral facts, someone who is not given the type of social being that we are, is not acting in a pro-social way, then I think it's objectively the case that they need to be stopped, that we need to intervene.
Because they're broken, right?
Yes, exactly. Sure, they're broken. Yep.
Okay. So
they can have bad.
They're not going according to plan, right?
They're not acting in a morally right sense.
Right. There's something wrong with them, right? They're broken.
Well, I would agree that there's something wrong with them. Yeah.
Okay. So there's teleology to existence.
There's teleology to my morals. My morals are useful. They have purpose.
Well, to existence. I mean, essentially you're saying existence is special. Therefore, those who do not value existence should be dealt with, even violently if necessary.
Yeah, I don't know about existence is a tough one, because I think it has to do more with well-being, with eudaimonia. It doesn't have to.
That's what I mean. No, I'm fine with it.
So there. Well, I think there's a difference there.
You can't joy, right?
No. Well, no, but you can be in so much pain that life's not worth living, right?
But okay, so
you could be, and so that has to do with more of a. It's not about raw mere existence. It is about a life that is worth living. It is about well-being. It's about well-being, and so that's what I mean
when I say existence.
Right. I think of existence as being something exists rather than doesn't exist.
Okay,
right?
But I'm giving you my more full understanding. When I say existence, I mean that which is flourishing, that which is pleasurable. I think we maybe mentioned this before. Jesus said, "I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly." That's what everybody's seeking for.
So do you have just, this is a bit of a sidetrack, but I guess this will help me determine how faithful you are to this. Would you say that there are some states where it is better to die than to live?
No, not from a Christian perspective. Now, I think it's okay to allow somebody to die who is in a state of suffering, and to give them pain medication such that they are not suffering. But life and death are in the hands of God. So it's His prerogative.
You would never see it to be a moral act to take the life of another if they were to be in such pain as to request it. So,
no,
for instance, my father went into hospice, and rather than allowing, and this isn't an emotional issue, so don't worry about using this example or speaking to it. I'm not trying to infuse our discussion with emotion.
Okay.
He was ill for a long time, and he had Alzheimer's for like 6 years or 7 years, or maybe like 6 to 8 years, rather than, and not that this was ever sought out, but there was no option to take his life in a more immediate and painless fashion, and instead was put in hospice. And in hospice, the concept is that they will try to mitigate the pain, but should someone break a bone, fall out of their bed, hurt themselves, they won't set the wound. They'll let the body struggle so as to bring about death. Now, I see that as being an immoral action. I think it's the moral action at that point is to, if an individual is struggling to the point where life is no longer worth living, to let them suffer in a way where you let the body struggle to death is a gruesome death, and not one that I think is conducive to a well-being or a life worth living.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the problem with that is that what you're doing is you're taking, again, the entire Western world is based upon for all the Lockean philosophy that underpins our Constitution, really most Western constitutions, is that of natural law, that God is the giver of life, and therefore no human being has the right to take another's existence, and even we ourselves, our life is sacrosanct, and unless it is a capital offense, is not open to being taken out of convenience. And once you say that life is expendable and rights are only given because we assign them rights, it's very easy to cross the line and say, well, you are, you know how we are. We're very pragmatic as human beings.
Yeah, and I don't agree with assigned rights, right? So I wouldn't say that rights are assigned, and I wouldn't say that Lockean philosophy is sacrosanct. So I don't have any problem with us growing.
But it was very coherent. That's my thing, and it's
coherency.
It's rationally justified.
Well, rationally justified depends on the audience, right? I might not find it rationally justified.
No, rational coherence is analytic. I'm saying it's analytically coherent. Well, yours is not.
How is
give me a just so story?
Well, if we reduce yours far enough along, we'll hit a just so story.
No, you won't.
Well.
Go ahead, try.
Oh, no, I want to talk about abortion. So,
okay.
So the way that I see it, and this is going to get us kind of back on the track, is that I would disagree with I see a person as being someone who's having subjective experiences.
Mm-hmm.
That it is an experiencing life, or the term I liked was a biographical life rather than a biological life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would differ with those who would say, the whole birth canal argument or cutting of the cord or some type of dependence. I think we have to talk about what is a person and what moral obligations do we have to people. They're not just merely targets of moral consideration. We actually have obligations to them. They have rights, right?
Yeah, but you haven't justified that.
Well, I have. It's just not to your liking. So we either have to move on, or we have to.
That's why I'm a very analytic guy. It's like it's got to make sense to me, and so again, this is why I wanted to start there, because you're saying that somehow human beings are super duper special because you perceive that to be just the way we are. It's a just so story. It's a brute fact. It's not something you demonstrate, because teleology is not accidental. Teleology is not an intention, but you're trying to assign it to us just. As a whim, just because, I like that.
Where does your meaning come from, Trey?
From the valuer, the objective valuer.
Where does the valuer get his values?
He is value in and of himself. He's self-existent.
You're just giving me a just so story, Trey.
How so?
You just gave me a just so story. You said, it's just, I said it was intrinsic to me.
No.
You're telling me it's intrinsic to the being.
Indeed it is, but I said it's because
How is that any different? You just attribute it to a God.
You're completely misunderstanding what I'm saying. That's the problem.
That? Okay, go ahead.
If there is such a thing as contingency, there must be self-existence. If you're going to hold the law of non-contradiction, you must affirm that. And if you're going to say no, it doesn't hold, you've got to define. You've got to do away with the very inquiry that we have in order to do it.
Well, I don't agree that contingents can't be self-existent. That the continuum, and we can go. This is another
law
one.
Of non-contradiction, right?
Another one. No, I don't think it's the law of non-contradiction. I think it's like the surface of a balloon that has nothing that it's set up against. So it is a pliable continuum that can take shape. That ontologies are an inference that we draw for the means of talking about things, and so there's a Trey Jadlow, but in actuality, all the constituent bits that make up Trey Jadlow have never not existed. Trey Jadlow hasn't. The conglomeration of those bits.
Yeah, but Bert, if something is changing, then it is contingent upon that which brings the change, right?
It would be contingent on its previous state.
Okay, whatever. It's a
No,
conglomeration of things.
That's a big difference. So
No, it's not. Well, okay, keep going back. Keep going back.
right. Well, it is contingent forever on itself. And it is self-existent, Trey.
Okay, so self-existence is not really self-existence, it's contingence.
No, it is.
You're violating the law of identity.
No, any change within the self-existent thing is simply contingent on the prior state of the self-existent thing.
Then it's not
This
self-existent.
is the same.
This is
No,
so
Trey,
simple. I don't know why you can't get this.
Trey, this is exactly like your God. Your God has
no, it's
your
not
God
like that.
Your God has thoughts. Your God thinks and acts. Your God is purposive in what he does. He brings about creation. He is changing, Trey.
He's changing, then he's contingent, right?
No, he is contingent only on himself. Self-existent. See, this is the thing, Trey. This is the thing that nobody gets when they talk to you.
I know.
No. Even there are theists who don't get this either, Trey.
Well, that's true, but it's not like it's irrational.
Well, not according to everybody else who disagrees with you.
Yeah, they're all atheists.
So no. So Trey, hold on.
Dedicated to their view.
No. So what I was going to say is the thing that nobody gets when they're talking to you is how why do you require it that a self-existent thing cannot change within itself?
Because it's contingent by definition. Do you not understand it? Contingency means dependent. If it changes, it's dependent by definition.
On what?
Anything. If it changes, it's dependent on whatever enacted the change.
Trey, let's say you have a God who is actively thinking. He doesn't do anything else. He just sits there and has thoughts.
And he's changing as he goes from one point to the next, right?
Well, I'm saying, what would be the contingent? What would he be contingent on to have a thought? His prior state, right? Just him.
Because
he is still he is still the only thing in existence, right? Is he not? And he is having thoughts.
No, because what you're doing is you're trying to link a time-space thinking process upon that which does not have time-space.
Why couldn't it have time-space? Why couldn't it just simply have?
I'm not saying it can't. I'm saying, well, yeah, it is.
You are saying it can't.
Yes, because time-space is contingent, right?
So if a being is having thoughts, there's a sequence to the thoughts.
Yes, but why
can it not simply be infinite having thoughts? There is no time in the sense that it is an infinite. It is an infinitely. It is an infinite error. Oh, no, hold on. So if you have a line that goes infinitely this way and infinitely that way, I can still have 2 points on the line, can I not? In relationship to each other.
How do you know line apart from physicality?
Wait, what does that mean? What do you mean a line apart from physicality?
The only way we can understand time, Bert, is by watching matter relate to motion. This is what my point. I keep bringing up every time.
No. Unless you're a self-reflective God who's thinking about his thoughts and goes, "Wow, I'm having thoughts."
What is time outside of matter?
Well, in the case of a being that lacks matter and has thoughts, time would be the beginning of a thought and the end of a thought.
Okay, which we understand as we observe contingent matter relating to motion, right?
But we're not talking. We're talking about a being where no matter exists, Trey. We're just talking about a being who hasn't
you have
created
no
matter.
idea. Remember, is self-existence communicable?
We're not talking. We're talking about a being who has not created. There's nothing to communicate to. This being. This being
pure actuality. Can it share that attribute? Because remember, once you share it becomes something.
Who would it have to share it with? It is a self-existent soul being having thoughts. There is nothing to communicate with, right?
That's exactly.
The possible being that I'm offering you is simply having thoughts in an infinite time span, and each thoughts have sequence. So there is time, but it goes forever back and forever, and it has always been that way. Now, how is that contradictory? How is that self-contradictory?
Because it is changing. Why can't you understand it? Self-existence cannot change.
Why not?
Cannot. Because it's contingent by definition.
On what? Contingent on what?
What you're doing is
the being is the only thing in existence. So the only thing the only thing it's contingent on is its prior state.
It
has moved.
Okay, so that prior state is not identical with the being itself. This is why God must be identical with all of it, who is
how is so I am a being that has thoughts, right? But you recognize that I am my own being, right? I'm not a different being from moment to moment based on my thoughts, am I? Or are you saying that? Are you saying that there's an infinite continuum of Berts, each one different?
No, since you're contingent, you had to be brought into existence. There was a time,
right? But you're saying I'm a distinct ontology. I am Bert. I am a existent agent that has thoughts, right?
Well, you're always changing. But there is an I about you.
Right. So the self-existent being that has no matter that it's created, that is having thoughts, is itself changing and is always only ever the only self-existent being. It is still the only being in existence, and it is still itself. How is having a thought mean that it's no longer itself? How is that the law of identity being broken? That a being that is having a thought is now not the thing that is. You're saying that it was A and now it's not A.
Is it changing? That's my question.
It's having thoughts. It is changing. Yes, okay. It's changing.
Okay, that's all I need.
If you consider that a change is having a thought, that there is a sequence to it, right?
You cannot have, if it's pure actuality, then it cannot have changed. You understand what actuality and potentiality is different?
Yes, I understand.
Properties.
Right, I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is that if you have a being that is self-existent, having thoughts, what is contradictory about that? Why is it no longer the being that it is? Why is it now the being? Just this is super simple. The being is A. The being is A. It has a thought. Is it now not A?
If you're anthropomorphizing this being to be changed, then it cannot be self-existent. That's what it's not self-existent anymore. It's just a definitional thing. It's real simple.
No, the only thing self-existent means is that it wasn't contingent on something else for its existence.
That's right. And so it would not change, right?
So, no, how does that follow? Why would it not change?
Because it's self-existent.
So it says Trey. No, hold on.
You're grasping straws.
No. Oh my God. No, Trey, listen. No, I'm really trying to help the rest of the viewing public actually understand what it is you're talking about. So we have a self-existent. Hold on. Bear with me. So you have a self-existent being. Mm-hmm. It has a thought. How does that mean now that it's no longer self-existent? What does that have anything to do with the derivation of that being?
Well, that's what you said.
Is the being not still just self-existent?
Is it changing?
There's a sequence to its thoughts.
Okay, so
we're talking about time.
You know what subject means? It's subject to change, right?
Subject to what? Subject to what it was before.
I don't know. You tell me. You're the one that says it's subject.
No. I'm saying if it is,
it's not simple. Is it made up of parts?
No. If a single being, if a single entity has a thought, mm-hmm. The thought is only the thought is only deriving from the self-existent being, is it not? So it hasn't become a new being, right?
If it changed, it did, right? It learned something. It thought, oh, well,
why does it have to learn something? I have thoughts all the time where I'm not learning something. I'm simply regurgitating.
Well, you're the one that says that it's changing.
No,
I'm saying it has a problem with it changing.
No. I'm talking about we're talking about time, Trey. You're saying that there is no sequence to it. Or are you saying
there's no sequence as we understand it as matter relating to motion? We cannot understand the realm of self-existence because we are contingent.
Right.
There must be analogical language. Remember that term?
No. So we're not talking about matter, right? So we're talking about a being that is simply having thoughts.
But Bert, you got to understand that the only way you can understand it as a contingent is through matter. Do you understand that? Right.
That's why I'm saying this self-existing being is not contingent. It is self-existent.
Then it's not going to change in any
Why
form.
not? Why not?
Because it is subject to that whichever brings the change. And you can say it can change within itself. It doesn't matter. Then it's made up of parts. It's different parts of itself interacting with itself. And if you take away one of those parts, it's not everything that it is. It must be the superlative of everything, every attribute that it has. It has to be.
Whoa. You just piled on a bunch of like ontological requirements for this being. Why must it be all those things? Why couldn't a self-existent being be less than those things?
If it's made up of parts,
why
then
couldn't
it can increase and decrease, can it not?
What does that have to do with it actually having thoughts? Why can't it be a lesser self-existent being than what you're imagining?
A lesser self-existent, so it can be added onto?
Why not?
Because it's self-existent. It's pure actuality. Pure actuality doesn't change.
It may not have occasion to have anything add on to it, but why couldn't
you mean from the outside an occasion?
No, well, it would not have it, right? Because there wouldn't be anything to contribute to it, right?
That's right.
Right. So it's sitting there recycling its thoughts. It's dumber than we are, but because we don't exist, it's just this self-existent dimwit. And it is sitting there thinking, I am, that I am, that I am, that I am. And each time it thinks that I am, it has completed a thought that has a beginning and an end. And it has does saying I am change it?
You're the one that says it has changed. I've asked you a question.
No, don't shift it back to me. I just asked you a question. Trey, I said, I am, and I am. And then you said, so it's changing, right? And I said, how is that a change? And so you haven't addressed that. So when it's sitting there spouting thoughts, how is it changing?
When we are speaking of change, we are necessarily relating it to time-space continuum.
You're the one that's saying that it's changing, that it's no longer, that it's broken the law of identity, that it's no longer.
It can't change. I'm saying it can't change. That's my point.
Can it think? Can it have a thought as I am? Can it say I am? Can it be repeating I am?
Not as we do as contingents living in a world of time-space where
I am talking about a being where there is none of us.
Bert, I said it's incommunicable, right?
Incommunicable simply means to me that you don't understand it and you can't tell me what it is.
No, incommunicable means it cannot be shared. Communicare means to share.
I'm saying that when you raise the issue of that it's incommunicable, then
you don't know what the word means.
No. I know what the word means. It means it can't be communicated. And when you say that these properties,
when I say share, it cannot be shared, because once you share it, it becomes becoming. It is becoming. It's a logic thing.
That's where you get accused of word salad right there.
Well, it's because my interlocutors don't understand what I'm saying, I guess. It seems simple to me. I guess I must have this capacity to think abstractly or something.
No, Trey, the problem is that when people I'm genuinely trying to understand why you think this thing is changing, and you keep either pull out word salad and you just you give me way more than I can eat. Number one, well, that's what I'm trying to do, Trey. I'm trying to isolate what the property is that you're talking about, such that the being that is recycling the same thought over and over again is no longer the being it was. What prevents that from being the case? Now my argument really is really simple. It is still a self-existent being. Its thoughts are contingent on its prior state. It is still the being that it was, every much so as I have thoughts. Trey, I have beginning and ends to my thoughts. Nobody thinks that I'm no longer Bert, that I'm no longer the being that I am, that I have broken the law of identity by having a thought, right? So what I'm trying to understand is how you think a self-existent entity that has been around for an infinite time frame, having thoughts, is breaking the law of identity. How is it?
Can you use the term contingent in describing the actions of the self-existent being?
Don't ask me a question in response to that. Give me an answer, explain it to me.
Okay, let me explain it to you. If you use the term contingent to describe anything about something that is self-existent, you just made a category error. You called something what it is not. You violated the law of identity. That's
the thing I'm looking to have you explain to me. So why does No. You just simply restated it.
No.
You have to.
It's the law of identity. Do words have meanings, Bert? Do concepts have meanings?
Yes, yes,
Self-existent means something. Contingency means something, and you cannot say 2 + 2.
Right. So what I'm saying, Trey, is the being is not contingent on something else. It is simply.
But it
is
still right.
No, it is still non-contingent. There is nothing else. No, there is nothing. Trey.
Oops, did I hit something?
Trey, there's nothing in existence to which it is contingent. Right? This being is the only thing in existence.
It change?
It is having thoughts, is it not? Why can't it?
So it's contingent on something, right? And
a prior
exists. How can it be changing?
A prior state. Why can't it be contingent on its prior state?
Its prior state, and then it is made up of parts. It's moving along, and it's getting bigger and smaller, or whatever. It's not. It's an effect by definition. If you're saying it's affected by a prior state, it's an effect. You're defining it as a contingent, Bert.
No. Why is it getting bigger and smaller? Why can't it simply be saying
prior state? Something is changing, right? Because it's dependent upon its prior state. It's not self-existent.
It's simply having thoughts, and it's not even thoughts that are adding to its knowledge. It is simply regurgitating information it knows.
It is becoming, though, right?
Sure, it's becoming infinitely on its own.
Okay, becoming is not possible to say that it is self-existent. Becoming is that which is contingent. You're trying to conflate two terms that are mutually exclusive.
No, I'm trying to give you an example of where it's not contingent on anything. I haven't added anything to existence. So
it's changing, right? It's moving from one state to another. In thought.
Yes, there's sequence to it. Yes,
okay.
It is having a thought, but it itself is not. No, it itself is not changing.
But you still haven't. It changing.
No, I said it had sequence, Trey.
Okay, sequence.
You're talking about that the content. No. You're talking about that the content of it is changing such that it is no longer itself.
No, I'm not saying it's not that it's self. I'm saying if there is something that's pure change, there is no self. There is no continuity.
Right. What I'm saying is that the constituent pieces of it, or the totality of it, does not change. It is simply acting.
So it is made up of parts, right?
And ironically, if such a being cannot actually be, then what are you talking about with your God who reaches out and acts to create creation? How is it that I can posit for the last 10, 15 minutes a creature who is merely thinking, and you tell me that it is violating the law of identity? The
way you understand it, because you're imposing your paradigm on it.
So I'll just toss out analogical language and a bunch of word salad, and we'll be okay. The problem is that your God that you're positing not only thought, he acted, right? There was a moment before and after his action, was there not? Trey, was there?
As we understand it, remember, what is time?
Okay.
Take us over and over.
Take us out of it. Okay, there's no human.
Who's inquiring him?
I am talking. No,
Trey, you can't take yourself out of it, Bert.
Trey,
you have to understand as a contingent.
Trey, was there a moment of creation?
Indeed, there was.
Was there a moment before creation?
I don't know what time was before creation. I can't perceive that.
But okay? So, was there a time where God hadn't acted?
What is time?
Was there an occasion where God didn't act?
How do you define occasion apart from time?
When God, well, that's what I'm trying. Did God act? Let me ask you that.
Yes, he did.
Okay. So God did act. Mm-hmm. There is a moment after his action, was there not?
What do you mean by after?
Within creation, the second day. Was there a time where God was acting on the first? Was God acting on the
face? I think it's Stephen Hawking said in the
here, Trey. What if I said, okay, so I brought this example up. So if I asked God today, is it November 15th? Mm-hmm. God would answer no, right? Mm-hmm. If tomorrow I ask God if it's November 15th, would God say yes?
Yes, that's how he would communicate with you.
So the content of God's response changed from one moment to another, did it not?
Well, insofar as we are living in a contingent world, yes, there's change.
Is God
change in our relationship to Him.
but
Absolutely.
is your God outside of our contingent world interacting with me when He tells me these things? So He is delivering different content from His thoughts to me, communicating it to me at different points within this contingent creation, is He not?
Indeed, He is.
Indeed, He is. So there is a moment that God acted, and a moment the next day that God acted. Was there not? To tell me within our contingent creation, Trey.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so your God has a state in which He interacts with His contingent creation on 2 different days, as a day is defined within the contingent creation.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's enough for me.
Okay.
I don't know what you're talking about when you say,
because you can't understand it. It's not possible, Bert.
Right. Well, right. We've been down this before. You haven't. It's not that I can't understand it. It's that you haven't made sense of what it is you're referring to. I'm not alone, Trey. Trey, there's a whole reason why. Like,
I know the whole atheist community is like, string him up, that dimwit.
No. I actually sincerely.
No, you're very nice to me, but most of them can't stand me. They're kind of rude.
Well, yeah. I think I've interacted with you enough times to be able to take the little quips as not personal, but
good grief! Everybody knows that. I mean, I'm in deeply, affectionately thoughtful care for my interlocutors, all of them, and I tell them all the time. So when I get all mad,
you have a strange way of showing it sometimes, Trey.
I have a dry sense of humor. This is what I don't understand. That's why I think I get along with atheists so well, is because they have a dry sense of humor. And
you gotta point me at some of those people. I don't know.
They don't like me, but I like them. Let's start that way.
Well, I think that's a safer thing to say.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, it's too bad that we couldn't really dig into abortion here.
It's so hard for me though, because I gotta have the proper foundation from which to speak.
Well, you went a whole lot further with Gus though, and oddly enough, I thought that we were going to find a lot more common ground here and be able to have a conversation about kind of bracketing some of the things we disagree on. And I know that it's foundational, and I want to talk about those foundational things. Mm-hmm. But I think that it's useful to set aside. Obviously, when you're talking to me, I disagree with your entire foundation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I want to understand. I basically try to put on Trey's head for a moment, and even though I can't, for instance, in this case, I cannot understand why you see it the way you do, or even how you do. I don't know what you're actually talking about, mm-hmm. but I can kind of set that aside and then have some understanding of how you derive how you feel that existence feeds your what constitutes the good, mm-hmm. that preservation of existence, and how that informs your opinions about abortion. And I'd hope to do the same, only so that we can get more pieces out on the table, and maybe some of those help give insight into the aspects that we're not quite getting from each other, right?
Okay.
Like if I can see more facets of it, then maybe I'll start to kind of get a peek into some of the things I'm not quite understanding what you're saying. Now all of a sudden the model's been turned slightly, and I can get a better look at it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I'm going to hold you to a lot higher standard than I do for somebody like Gus. And I don't dislike Gus, but I don't take him very seriously. I take you seriously because you're very intelligent, and you can understand what I'm talking about, and you're willing to interact honestly with them on a level that, I mean, there's some people in the community, I won't say any names. I don't even read their posts anymore, because it's all about a game. It's mm-hmm. all about gaming, and they're not honest, and they're not intellectual. And so for me, if I'm going to talk about the abortion, debate, I've got to, with somebody like you, I've got to have an epistemological structure that's going to make sense for human value, because everything revolves around the moral imperative of existence. And my big question I'm going to ask I've got to ask, for me, is my moral imperative comes because we're intrinsically made by an eternal valuer. And my imperative is going to say that that which is in the womb, we've got to ask ourselves the question, is that which is in the womb a human being? And this is where we're going to disagree, is you're going to say it's not a human person because it's not value and doesn't have any. And from my perspective, all human life is sacrosanct because of my worldview. And so therefore, I'm going to say that it doesn't need to be sentient necessarily. It just needs to be a human because it's made in the image of God. And that's going to be, and I think that's,
and I have a whole, two things. So I have a whole set of questions for you on, which would take us well into another 30 minutes to an hour, of how consistently you apply that standard and whether that's actually your standard or if there's actually another standard at work. Which I'm sure you're familiar with, people kind of puzzling you or quizzing you along those lines.
Sure.
Of,
Yeah.
And it's along the lines of what we talked about in terms of capital punishment.
Mm-hmm.
What do we talk, are there, if it doesn't if it's not an exhaustive definition for the good, then
Mm-hmm.
I've got issue with it. If it's got,
That's
and then your definition isn't actually your definition.
Right.
That there's another thing at work there underlying it, and that's actually what defines the good. So I want to understand that a bit more. But I was also going to say, in terms of, I actually find Gus to be hilarious. He is. I just want to put that out there, that actually I like Gus a lot. I can understand why you two butt up against each other in a really
I don't butt up with him. I get along with him fine, and I've only had 2 hangouts with him. He's just not very, and he knows this deep down. That's why he changes the subject all the time. He's very fluid, and he is a personality, and he's not ignorant by any means.
No.
But in my interactions with him, it's just like with you, we'll sit there and we'll hold a point and we'll sit there and deal with it. Gus will change the subject. He just keeps changing the subject. And I was like, I get tired of that. But with us, we're working it out, and we're honestly saying, okay, well, I don't get that. No, wait. You know, and we're staying on one subject, on one topic.
Yeah, and I think that's more about, I guess I would say that I can't really speak to Gus's intellect based on that. I think that's a different approach to the conversations, and there are people who, I mean, I got a lot of offers for different Bible passages to bring up to challenge you with on how your God interacts with abortion, but that's not really what. It was funny because when I saw those, I was like, oh yeah, well, but I'm not really debating Trey. I actually want to have conversation and dig at what our differences are, and not try to those. I don't take those verses as being that I agree with them, that they seem that I could probably find things that I have issue with that are I feel are inconsistencies in your worldview or whatever. But I'm more interested. I don't think those are the reasons that you believe those things, and that they're not, even if I were to hold you up against them, it's not meaningful in what I want to do. I want to have conversation and I want to discuss it. And if I'm going to challenge it, I want it to be deeper than that. I want it to be more foundational to the things that you hold.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you want to learn and you want to teach. I mean, hopefully that's what each one of us are wanting to do. We come to with an open mind, understanding that we all make mistakes. Our worldviews, both of us, have big gaps in them. Yeah. And what we want to do is interact with other people so that we can better live a life that corresponds to reality. And hopefully every interaction that I have, I hope that I can learn something. Sometimes it's very little, maybe, but I hope that I can come away saying, you know what, something to think about and something for me to maybe sharpen my view. You can't imagine, my views have changed significantly, not at a foundational level, but the way that I view things. Gosh, I remember on the doctrine of separation of church and state, I had a friend challenge me on that, and it was just like a 2x4 in the head. Wow. And I started researching it, and I found the nuance of it. And it's a fascinating topic, and very few people understand it. And so it's things like that. I love interacting. I think I've told you before, that's why I like interacting with Hangouts. I love talking to people from different cultures because they have a totally different perspective oftentimes, and they can give great enlightenment. Right. And I can learn a lot from them. So that's what I really enjoy about these things.
Even in terms of being, even if I don't, I think I do gain bits of how Trey Jadlow thinks in terms of our interactions. But even beyond that, I think just having to, I think I learn about how to communicate my ideas better and in a way that other people can understand them. So obviously, I haven't quite hit that stride with you.
Nor I with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we'll keep plugging that. So. But I know you're busy, but thanks for hanging out. And even though we couldn't get deeper into the issue, I think this is probably going to be one we're going to have to knock our heads against each other for a bit still, until we get tired of talking about it. So.
Okay. Well, that sounds good.
Sound good?
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Bert. And I appreciate you as a friend, and I appreciate you as an opponent. So I thank you for this.
Let me say one more thing, Trey, is that because this came up yesterday, I don't ever mean to misconstrue or mischaracterize your position. So when I do that, forgive me. There are numerous Christians out there with many different views, just as there are many atheists out there. I have a very different view of abortion than a lot of atheists, actually, because they fall into a more liberal camp than I am prepared to go into, and those are just different views. So if I end up assuming your position, I apologize. But
well, and that's what Hangouts are for, though, because when somebody gets a position wrong, you say, oh, that's not me, and you just correct it. And I mean, we all do that, and we all have our presuppositions, and we blanket people in the way we are. And that's what's so good about Hangouts. That's what I like about them, because it's an open exchange. You say, wait, no, that's not me, or whatever. You say, oh, okay. And I know you don't. I know you. And in both of hopefully everybody, we know that there are a lot of atheists, there are a lot of Christians that just lie. And it's sad. I think that's one of the reasons why I left the charismatic movement, because there were so many charlatans in there, and it just says, this is not right. Thinking they're doing God a favor by lying about a miracle or lying about whatever, and whoever it is, there are some people in the Google Plus community that happily misrepresent me just to gain brownie points with their peers. That's what I perceive. I could be wrong about that. And those are the people I've lost respect for them. And like I said, I don't even read their posts anymore, because it's a game for them. It's not a matter of accurately conveying what I believe. It's rather just winning brownie points, and moving up the ladder in the community and stuff like that. I don't care about that. I do want to have significance, but I want to do it with integrity. I want to play the game by the rules, and in the end, be a person of honor, because integrity is everything for me. If I can live the end of my life and say that, have on my tombstone, he had integrity, I would be very gratified. That's what I want.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. If you could do me a favor between now and our next interaction, if you could give some thought to how you can articulate to me. I really have trouble understanding your point on self-existence, a self-existent entity having even non-consequential changes. And I don't mean changes in form or substance, but in terms of a sequence of events. And I don't want to get into this right now. It's more of, if you can think about why for you that then necessitates contingence outside of itself, or violates the law of identity, that would be helpful to me. I think this
is just practical philosophy. I mean, it might be good if you watch them. I don't know if you watch them with James Dolezal on Reform Forum. If you just Google Reform Forum James Dolezal, he talks about the impassibility and the simplicity of God, and the philosophical necessities of these things. Many of them were pre-Socratics. Aristotle and men before them, had these things hammered out way before, although Aristotle was a little different.
I have less trouble with the necessity for them, given a certain ontological view of God. What I'm trying to understand them is in light of a being who is not why. Either I need an ontological argument for why such a being is necessarily not having thoughts that have sequence, or I need to understand why such a being could not exist. Right.
Okay. Well, we went over that a lot, but I mean, I'll try to think of a better way. It's so
well, yeah,
simple to me. It's just a terminology. That's what the terms mean, and the natural consequences of what that concept is.
I guess I see. I have when there's a self-existent being, I don't have any problem with it being contingent on prior states of itself.
But you're saying it's contingent
on the prior state of itself.
It's
self-existent and contingent on its prior states.
Okay. Yeah. So you're conflating the two concepts into one, which they're exclusive.
I'll see if I can find a better explanation for why I think that's actually plausible. So
that'd be good. Yeah, I need to get going, man.
Okay.
All right, Bert. Blessings to your family. Okay.
Yeah. Have a great weekend. Stay safe and have happy work.
Okay. All right. We'll see you later.
See you. Bye-bye.